Welcome to The Last Hope, everyone. It's good to have you here. We don't know if it's the final hope. The Last Hope is a name. It's a label. Make of it as you will. I'd like to remind folks that you can take a piece of The Last Hope with you. Those public terminal systems from downstairs are available and may be signed by conference staff. If you're interested, check in at the Hackerspace Village store downstairs. Up next, Adam Savage. So you've heard of him. Adam's one of the two original Mythbusters. He's on Discovery Channel, has a varied and fascinating background that's in the conference program. He also teaches courses in model design. Here he is.
All right, can you guys hear me? Am I being broadcast? No? How's that? No? All right, let's see if this works. Or my lavalier? My lavalier is on now? Okay. Ah, God, it's good to be here. This is the group of people that actually understand what we're talking about when we don't even know what we're talking about, which is most of the time. I've been paying attention to this conference for a while. I'm really honored that you guys have me here. It really is my honor. I feel like I'm one of the least qualified people in this room, but being unqualified is my job, so I'm just going to run with it. What I have is about a 15-minute, maybe 10 minutes, if I could talk really fast, piece on obsession, discussing my personal obsessions, because I suspect that there's some minor obsessive-compulsive tendencies in the audience. And then I'm going to take questions from you guys and just have a conversation for another 40 minutes. All right? Sound good? Okay. We'll see how fast I can run through this thing. About 4 years ago, The New Yorker did a piece on a cache of dodo skeletons found on the island of Mauritius. Now, Mauritius is a small island off the west coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean where the dodo bird was found, discovered, and eventually extinguished by human inhabitation or rats or whatever your prevailing theory is. Now, this article was about how archaeologists were very excited to find this cache of skeletons because it meant that they might actually be able to assemble a full dodo skeleton for the first time. While museums all over the world have different dodo skeletons, none of them has a complete and whole skeleton from a single dodo because the dodo went extinct at such a recent time, 1700. Nobody was actually paying attention to extinction as the tragedy that we understand it is now, and nobody saved the bones. Nobody saved all the bones from a single dodo. Everyone's had to assemble theirs from many, many different pieces. Now, this appeals to me. I have a particular obsession with things of a peculiar type of rarity. Things that there's only one of in the world, or maybe no one even knows where the one in the world is. Lost manuscripts, the Necronomicon from Evil Dead. Yeah. Tibetan clay-sealed tablet manuscripts found in caves. The Aristotle's Commedia from The Name of the Rose. Things like this really, really get me going and make me, for some reason, it feeds right into my love of making objects. Because the objects that I make are, of course, one of a kind, because I'm the one that made them. There's like this direct parity between objects of this kind of rarity. And the thing that really got my attention, though, about this article about the dodo birds was this photograph. This photograph was so compelling to me. It was so beautiful. There was so much personality in this skeleton. I could see that this isn't fossilized, that it's real bone. I could see the wire that the conservator used to assemble the skull there around the beak. There was so much story in this piece. And it got to me that I wanted one. Now, I have a little more money now than I used to. And I began looking around on the web. This is actually the dodo skeleton on the island of Mauritius in their tourism museum. It's my favorite. And I began downloading pictures of dodo skeletons from all over the web, museums all over the world. And I wanted to see if anyone sold a replica of one. I figured it was a long shot. I did find this couple that makes them for museums. They charge about $20,000 a piece, and I don't have that much money. But I did manage to gather several hundred pictures into my Creative Projects folder. I think a lot of you have folders like this. It's called Creative Projects. It really is just full-out obsession. Probably 40 gigabytes, 25,000 photos of everything I'm interested in. Rings, decoder rings, right here, that's a pistol ring. You guys have probably seen this online, just like, you know, just checking the same sites. Airplane cockpits, people's workbenches, the ZF-1. Stormtrooper costumes. And I'm going to give up my geek cred. I hand drew this map of Middle-earth for myself. So one day I'm at the art store, and I'm maybe about a month after I saw the Dodo article. It might have been a year. But I'm at the art store, and I'm buying some Super Sculpey and some stuff for my kids. We're going to have a craft day at home. We're going to sit around the kitchen table and build shit. And I got all these photos that for some reason are ringing through my head while I'm in the art store, and I'm thinking, you know, I've looked at the dodo skeleton enough, the dodo skull enough, that I really understand its topology, I think. I've got it in my head, and maybe I could make a dodo skull. The thing you should understand about me, though, is that I'm not a sculptor. I have never been a traditional soft sculptor. In special effects, I was what you call a hard-edge model maker. I could make towers like this all day long. Things from The Mummy, Destroyed New York from AI, parts from Terminator 3, Bicentennial Man. This kind of stuff, absolutely my bailiwick. I love hard-edged model making. When it comes to the soft stuff, dragons' faces, I leave that to the other guys. Some of my friends are the most brilliant sculptors I've ever met. It's their task. However, I understood the topology of this thing enough where I thought I could tackle it. And I found this photo, which is a hand with the skull, which gives me a size reference. So I promptly printed it out, and I kept on expanding the size until the hand matched my wife's hand, actually. It looks like a lady's hand. And then I had a size reference for the skull, and I began to gather all the rest of the photos I had, print them up to an accurate scale. And after about an hour or two, I had a reasonable facsimile of a dodo skull. I wish I could show it to you. The problem is even though it occurred to me at the moment to take pictures of the process of my first, quote, sculpture, for some reason I was lazy and I did not take pictures. However, after about an hour, I had this dodo skull, and the armature wire I had going around to the back of it to hold the skull up actually turned out to be perfectly placed for a vertebrae. And because skeletons is another thing that I've been obsessed with over the years, I have several dozen in my collection, and if I'm in the woods and I find some vertebrae, I'm taking them home. I understood vertebrae enough to actually to know their how they work mechanically, the different parts ride upon each other, and I began to fake myself a dodo spine. I wasn't thinking about making a full dodo at this point. It was kind of like the only way you can clean a really messy room, I don't know if you guys have ever seen one, is to just pick up one thing at a time. You don't have to think about the whole thing, just one thing at a time, and eventually the room is clean. I was just going vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae, just thinking about the next one and keeping on going, adding some more wire, et cetera, until by the end of that day, I had a dodo skull and a spine and the better part of a pelvis. So I kept going. I downloaded more pictures of dodo skeletons, more pictures of dodo pieces, parts. Check this guy out. I found original drawings from naturalists who visited Mauritius when the dodos were alive. A whole dodo foot skeleton. This guy even put it on a scanner with a ruler on it. Thank God for him. This guy too. And so finally, after about 6 weeks, I made myself a dodo skeleton. You'll notice, I even went so far as to actually make a museum label, and I had Tap Plastics make me a museum vitrine for it. I don't have the room in my house for it, yet there it is. And it was deeply satisfying, and it also represented kind of a sea change for me, because now that I had my dodo, all of a sudden, in my obsessions folder, in my creative projects folder, there might be something else I could make for myself that I'd never considered to make for myself, because at that point, when I was first obsessed with it, I wasn't a sculptor. And so I went back into the creative projects folder. What else could I make? And I settled upon the Maltese Falcon. And if you've never read the Maltese Falcon, you have to read it. And if you've never seen the movie The Maltese Falcon, you have to see it. I know there's Elvis people and Beatles people, and there are definitely Hammett people and Chandler people, and I am a Raymond Chandler person through and through, but I got to give it up for The Maltese Falcon because it's a fantastic book and an amazing movie, and it is specifically about the obsession with an object, the object of desire, the Maltese Falcon that Bogart comes across in the film, that Gutman is looking for. Now, it's supposedly a 14th century gift from the Knights of Malta to the Habsburg kings as thanks for giving them the island of Malta during the fight with the Islamic Empire. In fact, it's actually based on quite a similar thing, this hideous thing from the 16th century, which is called the Kniphausen Falcon, and it's actually a ceremonial pouring vessel made kind of as an offering, but not by the Knights of Malta, although Hammett built a lot of real history into his history of the Maltese Falcon. I even went so far a few years ago to buy this replica off of eBay, and I know it's kind of dark, but all you need to know is that it's a piece of crap. And then as soon as I received it in the mail, they had taken photos of it that made it look like it might be kind of accurate. When I got it, it just, I mean, it looks like, to me, it looks like Peter Falk in a falcon suit. I don't know where that analogy came from. And the problem is, I saw it, I knew that it was a piece of crap, it sat on my shelf, I thought, you know, I wanted the real thing. And at that point, I didn't consider making myself one. I thought maybe I could ask a friend to sculpt it for me and something like that. I mean, there's certainly plenty of hideous replicas on the web that people have made, but I wanted the real thing. I wanted this. And this is a picture that I came across in a very small thumbnail. It turns out that the original Maltese Falcon, which was made in lead, was given as a, well, where do I begin? You remember William Conrad from the Cannon series in the 70s. Well, William Conrad actually has a much longer history with Hollywood. He was kind of a fixer, kind of a cleaner, director, a writer, an actor. He did a lot of work helping the studios finish projects that were unruly, and as a thank you to all his service, Jack Warner gave him the Maltese Falcon, and it sat on his office shelf for about 30 years until he died, and then his wife sold it at Christie's. I managed to track down an antiquarian bookseller, was able to find me the original Christie's auction catalog and get me this picture, which gives a tremendous amount of beautiful detail of the falcon. And this texture, I mean, I'm still mystified by this texture. This bird is cast in lead, then it was painted with black enamel for the movie, and after 40 years of people handling it, for some reason, it's gold. I don't get it, but I love it. And the patina, the other thing, one of the other areas that I'm really fascinated by within the subset of objects is the patina that tells the story of the narrative of the object. In fact, it's every model maker will tell you when you're working on a spaceship on Star Wars and you're gluing two things and then you're taking a space and you're gluing another one. Because in Star Wars, it's actually two things, space, one thing. In Star Trek, it's three things in a row. And you're gluing these details on piece by piece, and you always have in your head the narrative of what these things are. I understand what this is a cooling vent, this is an offshoot thing, this is something else, a thermostat, and that narrative informs the piece. It tells me that the piece is looking right. Oh, it doesn't quite look because it doesn't look like, you know, this works here. And the patina of the falcon here is completely self-similar to me to that. It is a narrative of function. It tells the story of the object. Other birds I found online that were in my obsession folder. This one is actually a resin Maltese Falcon, apparently built when Humphrey Bogart got pissed off because the lead one was so friggin' heavy that he dropped it. This is a resin one found at a New Jersey flea market back about 10 or 11 years ago by a Los Angeles filmmaker who recognized it for what it was. It took him 5 years to authenticate it, which I thought was kind of funny because looking at it, I understood it was authentic the second I saw it because of a bunch of details. And this actually sold at Profiles in History around 1999. Profiles in History is another movie memorabilia auction site. And the best thing that Profiles in History did, if you see there, is that they not only took a photo from the front, but there were photos of both sides and the back. And so now I had all the topological details I needed to really put the whole entirety of the Maltese Falcon in my head and start to make it. So I promptly printed all of these photos up. I know these are lower res, but they gave me what I needed. I printed them up full size because luckily the Christie's auction catalog happened to print the exact size and dimensions of the Falcon. And I began to use these with calipers and sculpting with Super Sculpey my Maltese Falcon. Now, I only have one picture that I took to show to a friend of mine that I took with my eyesight camera on the laptop here. This is me, my wife's watching television, and I'm working on the Falcon slowly but surely. Now, the other thing is, because this is only my second sculpture, I don't know how to make it shiny. I don't really know how to make it smooth. It turns